The race for the ANC's top job is a two-horse race between the incumbent, Cyril Ramaphosa, and the NEC member, Zweli Mkhize, who's also a former minister in Ramaphosa's cabinet. This emerged a short time ago at the announcement of the full list of candidates for the ANC's top 6 positions. The party's chairperson of the Electoral Committee, Kgalema Motlhante, says there will still be room to nominate people ahead of the elective conference. In fact, from the floor is when those nominations will happen at conference. The party has reached its 70% threshold for branches who've held their meetings ahead of conference, giving the green light for the gathering to proceed in about 3 weeks from now. Our politics reporter Ziyanda Ngcobo is live at the ANC headquarters, Luthuli House. Ziyanda, so the presidency, a big one to watch, but also the deputy presidency.
That's right, Thembekile. In fact, all of the positions will be important to watch, and it's very critical to note that there are names that have not made it in terms of this official process. But as you've already mentioned, 25% is needed in order for you to qualify when there is an expectation that there will be nominations from the floor at the Nasrec conference. But insofar as the tallies are concerned, it's clear that President Cyril Ramaphosa is in the lead when it comes to those numbers. In the deputy president position, you have Ronald Lamola there, you have Oscar Mabuyane, as well as Paul Mashatile leading when it comes to those tallies. And interestingly enough, it's the positions, I think, Thembekile, where you only have 2 names that are running that will be critical. So for the Secretary General position, you have Mdumseni Ntuli at 1,225, Phumulo Masualle, who is on the slate of Dr. Zweli Mkhize at 889, and Fikile Mbalula at 749. And the person I think that has really seemed to have been an underdog is Bejane Chawuke, who is on the ticket to become Treasurer General. He got the highest numbers at 552, followed by Pule Mabe and Mzwandile Masina. So, really the Electoral Committee Chair, Kgalema Motlhante, emphasizing that this process is not yet over, and this is just, from the numbers that they got from the branches across the country. But those over 4,000 delegates who will be there at the conference could still change, the tide and the trajectory of those who've been nominated in the top 6 now.
2 names missing from this list which stand out for me, Ziyanda. Dr. Nkosazana Zuma and Lindiwe Sisulu both have been campaigning for the presidency. Not their first time, in fact.
That's right. And also another name that was missing is that of former President Jacob Zuma for the position of chair. You'd recall that in the statement that he'd released a few months ago, that he'd said that some had already approached him to say that he could still stand as chair, and they believe that he still got lots to contribute. No way on that ticket. It's just a 2-horse race there between Gwede Mandashe as well as Stan Mathabatu, who Limpopo already said that they would be sending him from the province to national to become chair. They've always been very clear that that's how they would be negotiating with the other provinces insofar as positions are concerned. Insofar as Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma and Lindiwe Sisulu not making it, onto in terms of the numbers there. But as I've mentioned, they may still have be pinning their hopes on that nominations from the floor process. But of course, questions about gender equity being raised by some journalists here, and the Electoral Committee saying that as far as they're concerned, they're just dealing with the numbers that have been coming from the branches. This is a process of the branches, and theirs is really to create some kind of structure to ensure that factional politics is done away with by putting rules in place. So for an example, Thembekile, none of the slates can provide, accommodation or sponsor delegates in any shape or form going into this conference, so as to eliminate then this issue of money being used to sort of barter for votes going into this process.
The ANC has spoken today at length, as it's done with previous conferences, about how there's no room for factionalism, but it would appear at this stage, based on nominations so far, if this is a reliable gauge, that it will ultimately end up with a very mixed top 6 if these are the people who are right at the front of the queue.
Exactly. So this is the point that I've just made, that, you know, the way in which the outcomes of this nomination process, and must be emphasized that the process is not over yet, it shows that the branches themselves have rejected, you know, slate politics. If you look at the so-called slates that would have previously been out, for an example, Dr. Zweli Mkhize slate, where there's himself as president and Phumulo Masualle as SG. Phumulo Masualle has been overtaken by Mdumiseni Ntuli, you know, in terms of the numbers from the tallies that have been taken now. And even if you look at the slate of the Renew 22, which is that of the president, Fikile Mbalula is nowhere close to the numbers that Mdumiseni Ntuli has, and yet he was on the president's slate, and the president is leading in terms of his numbers. So certainly, I think at this point, it would be safe to say that the branches are looking at individuals per, you know, position, as opposed to a wholesome kind of slate and you know, winner takes all or zero-sum game, which we've previously seen in other conferences.
Ngcobo, thank you very much for that. Ziyanda is reporting from the ANC headquarters, Luthuli House.